John, should we give it a few minutes or should we start right at 1 o'clock?
I might wait till 1 or 2 after IRA, people just lunchtime, but yeah, I'd start maybe 12:01, 12:02.
Okay, because I see we have 37 on right now. So I know we have a lot more than that who have registered. For those that have joined, we're just going to wait another minute or so and then we'll get going. Okay, it's about 2 minutes after 1 o'clock Eastern time. And John, with your permission, I think we should get going. Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning for those that are on the more western parts of the United States or internationally. My name is Ira Dorfman. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. And I'd like to greet you from Washington, D.C. for the virtual B100 Biodiesel Technology Showcase event that we're hosting today. And like to specifically thank the National Biodiesel Foundation and Renewable Energy Group for putting together this event. Just at the start, I would like to thank our program participants and showcase supporters. There are a number of Clean Cities organizations around the country that have helped us promote this event. Their logos are on the screen right now, as well as our participants. So there are two things I would like to do before I turn the program over to our presenters this morning. One is simply to review the agenda. After my opening remarks, we're going to turn the deck over to John Sharonson, from REG, who will be giving a talk on the benefits of B100, followed by a discussion by OPTIMUS of the technology itself, and then a presentation about DC Water's B100 commitment, discussion of funding opportunities that are available to for you to take a similar step forward and utilize B100 in your fleets. And then another interesting story from the City of Ames, Iowa, on their deployment and how well it worked under the most severe of weather conditions. And we'll finish up by using either the Q&A or chat box for you to ask your questions, and have I'll moderate a little panel and ask the panelists to respond to your questions. So as time goes by, if you have questions, please insert them in either the chat box or the Q&A box. I will collate them and ask the appropriate panelists to answer them. What I'd first like to do is, I've been asked, it appears that Washington, D.C. has become a hotbed for the utilization of B100. And there are really two fleets, one that has an ongoing program which is the DC Department of Public Works. And DC Water is now, as you'll hear in a few minutes, catching up and has a very ambitious program of its own. But just to quickly summarize what DC Public Works has been doing, we had actually an event at their facility pre-pandemic, where we took this little snapshot of one of their garbage packers that had been converted to B100. Initially, they deployed 6 garbage packers, and this fall we're going to see 37 additional vehicles being deployed, 16 more in early 2022, and an additional 21 packers ordered, scheduled for order and delivery in 2023. And so it's really important to note that even despite the pandemic and the fact that there's been less mileage utilized for these vehicles over the last year, just in our annual report in 2020, just on even with the reduced miles during the pandemic year, the DC Department of Public Works was able to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 920 tons. And just an editorial comment here, we're clean cities, and my coalition is under a lot of pressure to promote electrification, and we're doing a lot of that for sure. And there's certainly appropriate opportunities for electrification, but this is a great opportunity to demonstrate that there are other technologies that fit this mold too, in terms of carbon reduction strategy. And clearly what the District of Columbia is doing, both with Public Works and DC Water, demonstrate that there are other very effective technologies available to accomplish this. So with that, I'm going to, we can begin our formal agenda. Again, encourage you to ask your questions, type them in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we will reach out and accomplish that at the end of of the presentations. So John Swaringson from REG is up next, and John, it's all yours.
Ira, thanks for that introduction and walking folks through the agenda. So also thanks to all the participants for taking the time to jump on today. We've got a great crowd assembled. I think we had about 160 to 170 people registered for this technology showcase, and we are seeing everywhere around the country an acceleration in fleets in both the public in the private sector to adopt low carbon fuels now. And that's one of the tremendous benefits of biodiesel and B100 in particular, is we don't have to wait for next generation technology. And when you take into consideration that the total cost of ownership, it's the right time and the right place for B100. So once again, thanks to everybody for taking the time today. So just a quick introduction to REG. So we're the nation's leader in biomass-based diesel production. We have 9 biorefineries represented by the blue dots in North America, as you can see on this slide. We also have 2 biorefineries located in Europe and Germany. All told, we have nearly 500 million gallons of production capacity. Our most recent full year financial results, we sold 651 million gallons of fuel in 2020, which is quite a bit more than that 500 million gallon I just referenced. We actually we go out and buy third-party biodiesel and renewable diesel from other producers because we have such significant demand for our fuel. In 2020, we did about $2.4 billion in revenue, sell virtually everywhere now in the contiguous United States, as well as Canada and a number of European countries, and our European market is rapidly developing as well. So I made a reference to this at the beginning. We really feel as a company and as a biodiesel and renewable diesel industry, we are really in the right time and the right place. We are seeing over the last 18 to 24 months a tremendous pull from society, once again, both in the public and the private sector. So companies like, Amazon and PepsiCo and Walmart and FedEx have really led this push in the public sector, adopting very progressive low carbon zero targets by 2030, 2035. We've also seen that with entities around the globe. Places like Washington, D.C. that Ira's already referenced have very aggressive greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. Paris, Seattle, New York City, once again, around the globe, we're seeing tremendous demand and pull for low carbon fuels that can be introduced today. And we're seeing a regulatory push as well. States and cities are starting to put incentives or requirements in place to drive the demand for low carbon fuels, and the Biden administration in their infrastructure program is also very supportive. So once again, right time, right place, low carbon fuels now. So just a quick overview of the business model that REG implements to deliver low carbon fuels to our fleet customers around the world. So we take waste feedstocks, waste fats and oils, things like used cooking oil that come from fast food restaurants around the country, animal fat, which is a byproduct of the meat processing industry. Inedible corn oil or distilled corn oil is a byproduct of ethanol production. And we also take some traditional soybean oil and canola oil, crops that are actually grown by farmers for the protein for the animal feed industry. We take those waste oils, we deliver them to our 11 biorefineries across the globe, and we produce high quality biodiesel and renewable diesel. And I'm going to talk a little carbon math here. It's the new math, but with scope 1 and scope 2 stuff directly out of the tailpipe in your fleet, there is 96 to 100% greenhouse gas emission reduction compared to fossil carbon fuels. We can talk full life cycle analysis benefits as well. The CI scores on these fuels are really strong. And once again, we are seeing tremendous and increasing demand for these low carbon fuels in fleets around the globe. So we certainly at REG and as a biodiesel industry believe in an all of the above approach to technology solutions to deal with climate change. We are supportive of electrification. We're supportive of natural gas, in particular, renewable natural gas, hydrogen, and some of the other technologies that are out there. But particularly as we look at diesel consumption, a large percentage of it is consumed in the medium and heavy duty trucking space. And while electrification may be ready for prime time in your Uber and your Lyft vehicles in some metropolitan areas, in Class 8 trucking with snow plows, with refuse trucks, the technology is either not readily available or really expensive. And what we're seeing from the climate scientists is that we cannot wait 5, 10, 15 years for some of these next generation technologies to be introduced. There are real solutions available today with minimal investment, either in your bulk fueling infrastructure or in your vehicles themselves. And we'll talk a bit about that later on during the presentation. So transportation, as most folks know, is one of the heaviest emitters, and the heaviest emitters in that category are those medium and heavy duty vehicles. So the other thing that I think people sometimes lose sight of as we start to introduce B30, B50, B100 blends is that high blends of biodiesel are fairly commonplace across North America, around the globe at this point. Most of the travel centers in the US have been selling up to B20 blends to their customers, particular customers in incentive states around the country. The state of Minnesota in the warmer months actually has a B20 mandate. We've been using, as you'll see over the course of this presentation, in fleets around the country, B100 for a number of years. REG has been supplying the underground mining sector. They have some air quality requirements in terms of diesel particulate matter, and folks like Cummins and Caterpillar and others have been using B50, B80, B100 blends in their underground mining operations. And Indonesia as a country has a B30 mandate. So once again, high blends are actually fairly commonplace. The fuel is readily available. We're getting more and more OEM support. This is becoming a mainstream commercial activity. And I just got to wrap up with this, and I've emphasized this message a number of times, but if you're looking for the lowest carbon fuel to maximize your carbon reduction that is available today, biodiesel is the answer. Once again, we have the 95 to 100% reduction in scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, minimal investments that we'll talk about over the case of the presentation. In most cases, your existing bulk fuel infrastructure can be utilized. Jill Hamilton is going to talk later. We have been very successful working with fleets, getting federal and state funding to support initial projects and project growth. Biodiesel, while getting more valuable all the time because of the nature of its being a low carbon fuel, it still is very competitive with diesel economics across most of the country, and the carbon reduction can start today. So I'm going to transition at this point to Colin Heiler, CEO of Optimus Technologies.
Perfect. Thanks, John. Let me just share my screen here, and yeah, appreciate everyone tuning in this afternoon or this morning or middle of the night. I see we've got a couple of folks dialed in from outside of the US. So my name is Colin Heiler. I'm the founder and CEO of Optimus Technologies. We are based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We've been around since 2010, and we build technology to upgrade medium and heavy duty diesel engines to operate on 100% biodiesel. So here to share a little bit more detail about the technology itself, and then I'll be passing off the baton to Tim Fitzgerald from DC Water. So on the title slide here, this is one of those trucks that Ira had indicated in his initial slides. This is a DC Public Works. This is their new build snowplow. So these trucks are actually coming equipped through the build process. The Optimus system gets integrated and is delivered to DC's dealership, which is Johnson Truck Center. It's a Freightliner dealer in the greater Washington region. And these trucks are coming equipped with the Optimus Technologies dual fuel system that we're going to talk about here today. I'll also make a quick note on Ira's slide. DC is currently actually operating 23 total packers today, plus the additional equipment that you had suggested. So there's over 100 units that are either in operation or near term will be in operation down at DC Public Works, in addition to some of the other fleets in the region that are running the technology. So we're based, as I mentioned, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Our primary focus has been on medium and heavy duty engine applications, new engines and new equipment that is already in existence, but our pathways also allow fleets to purchase the product as a retrofit to upgrade existing vehicles that are in your fleets. Biodiesel, as John had touched on, allows fleets to enable nearly a zero carbon emission footprint due to the biogenic nature of the feedstocks and the inputs. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but in addition to being applicable for on-road transportation, the technology is compatible with anything that's operating a diesel engine. So we're seeing more and more requests for off-road equipment, for marine applications, for power generation. And one of the key advantages of deploying biodiesel is that the technology is available at scale today, and it leverages and utilizes existing infrastructure. So that's very critical as we move towards a world in which carbon reductions are becoming increasingly more important, but also the time scale that those technologies can be adopted are critical. In the transportation world, heavy duty vehicles account for nearly a quarter of all fuel that's utilized, which is a significant portion of the total carbon emissions, even though these vehicles are often a small percentage of the total pool. So technologies like electrification are making significant strides in headway, but those are mostly available and being deployed in the light duty sectors. And often all of the fleets that we are deploying our technology with have a comprehensive portfolio of strategies that they're deploying between electrification, natural gas, hydrogen. But when you get into the medium and heavy duty sectors, those represent significant challenges, both from a duty cycle and from a cost of equipment. So one of the advantages that we're seeing across the board is fleets deploying biodiesel on the heavier end of equipment and electrification for the lighter duty. The most recent IPCC report basically, continues to state that time is running out in terms of reducing carbon emissions. One of the things that is often not considered is the actual reduction strategy. And so I wanted to just point out here that carbon reductions are beneficial based on a time scale. So if we wait 20 or 30 years and reduce 100% of our carbon emissions, there's actually significantly lower benefit than reducing 70% of emissions today. And so it's similar to the compounding effect of net present value. And when you look at economics, investing today is a much has an outsized return than investing later at a higher amount. And so when fleets are evaluating strategies and methods for carbon reduction, the key benefit is pushing and moving towards carbon reductions today. I won't spend too much time on giving the background on biodiesel. John did a great job there, but I'll start to introduce a couple things that we're seeing in the fleet marketplace. The first is that, again, hammering home that point that carbon reductions are needed today. There's a significant amount of challenges that are necessary to overcome when you're looking at heavy duty EVs. And we see this is as a presentation earlier this year with Freightliner. Their analysis shows that roughly for every 10 heavy duty electric vehicles that are deployed, the power demand from that depot is equivalent to about 1,000 homes. So if you think about a fleet that has maybe, hundreds of trucks consolidated in a small region, the power density and the infrastructure requirements from a grid standpoint are not an insignificant challenge. And that was one of the key themes of the conference that I was at was, vehicle technology has its challenges, but more so there's a significant outlier in terms of the requirements for deploying electrification in terms of grid and infrastructure challenges. So relatively easy to do a pilot of 1, 2, 5 trucks, but when you start to get into massive scale, we see a significant number of challenges there. Fleets are primarily focusing on scope 1 or scope 3 emissions, depending on where you are in the value chain. Those represent either direct company-owned vehicles or contracted transportation services. Biodiesel allows you to achieve over 95% reduction in those scope 1 carbon emissions. So when you're setting net zero goals, biodiesel enables you to get there almost instantaneously. One of the things that I think is helpful, and this is a little bit of a gimmicky image that I found online, but it helps put the reductions in context. Biodiesel utilizes recycled atmospheric carbon in the plant and animal feedstocks. So the photosynthesis, the carbon uptake that happens in the feedstocks is converted into fuel. So rather than solar and photovoltaics to derive renewable energy from electricity, you've got a similar mechanism that happens through the photosynthetic process to convert solar energy into fuels. And so the net carbon life cycle of a biofuel is close to or at zero. In addition, there's also an operational benefit to deploying biodiesel for modern emission aftertreatment equipped systems. Biodiesel has a significant reduction in soot matter. So you're reducing particulate and soot from those diesel particulate traps, roughly 50 to 60% reduction. And on a commercial vehicle that's using 20,000 gallons of fuel a year, that's equivalent to offsetting roughly 100 pounds of soot from those emission systems. So there's a performance benefit, a maintenance benefit, as well as an efficiency benefit. And that's no small matter in regard to maintenance and operations for new vehicles and new engine systems. So at a high level, what is the technology that's allowing these vehicles to run on 100% biodiesel? It's a dual fuel technology. It's a supply side system that integrates into the engine. The way that it's going to work, the engine's always going to start up and shut down on traditional diesel or renewable diesel. The fuel system includes a heated auxiliary fuel tank, dedicated fuel filter and processing module, user interface that goes in the cab, and then an electronic control unit that automates the entire process. So from a driver standpoint, they're going to get in and operate the vehicles without any requirement for engagement. The system will automatically operate and switch back and forth between diesel and biodiesel on an as needed basis. Predominantly, the engine itself, though, is going to be operating just on traditional biodiesel. This is an image of the core of the mechanical system. We call it our vector manifold. This has an embedded heat exchanger, pumps, and sensors. The fuel tanks come in a variety of different combinations, and you'll hear from a couple of users today that all have different fuel tank configurations. This actually is an image out of one of the City of Ames snowplows. Rich will be speaking later in the presentation. This fuel tank configuration is actually a dual chambered tank. So you've got a small portion for diesel and a larger portion for biodiesel within the same tank footprint of the original equipment fuel tank. So this is upgraded as part of the installation process. This is a tank for a DC public works truck. This image you can see on the upper left-hand corner there, the heat exchanger that actually goes down into the tank. That again is conditioning the biodiesel. The entirety of the fuel system is heated, and we're monitoring that in real time with software and a variety of different temperature and pressure parameters, so that regardless of the ambient conditions, the truck, the piece of equipment of the engine is able to operate on 100% biodiesel. The electronic control unit automates the entire process. One of the key aspects is making sure that there's no change in driver behavior, no change in operations. So our fuel system controller and technology automates that process so the users can get in the vehicle, they can operate it, and aren't required to take additional steps or operational have their operations impacted. If at any point the biodiesel fuel system needs service or is in any way outside of the operating parameters, system will automatically default back over to traditional diesel fuel. So you're never inhibiting the engine. It's just maybe isolated to traditional diesel if there's a service component or item required. In cab, there's a small display. It goes into the dash. Provides the user with a fuel level gauge for the biodiesel tank. Also provides feedback on what system the vehicle's operating on. Our platform has a full suite of telematics and data reporting. We're collecting over 200 parameters every second that comes back into a fleet portal, gives fleet managers and technicians deep diagnostics into the operation and the performance of the systems. In conjunction with the technology, we work with REG and others to deploy infrastructure, such as this tank, which is at DC Public Works. This is a heated above ground skid mounted tank. So it's a modular solution that can allow you to dispense 100% biodiesel if you're not at a point where you're utilizing your existing infrastructure. Outside of the folks that you'll hear from today, we have the technology deployed throughout a wide variety of fleets, very diverse applications from refuse to snowplow, agricultural equipment, Class 8 commercial hauling, school buses, any application with a diesel engine, the technology is applicable for. And so in addition to hearing from direct users today on the panel, wanted to share a little bit about the diverse range of applications. And that's another thing that's really beneficial as we start to look for more and more carbon reductions. Being able to see that the technology that you're deploying is universal across the fleet helps to craft a strategy when you're looking to achieve carbon reductions. You don't need to just necessarily wait for new vehicles to become available in a particular type of technology. If it's available today, if it's in your fleet today and it's powered by diesel, you can be operating that equipment on 100% biodiesel. So with that, I really appreciate everyone tuning in today, and I will pass the baton to Tim Fitzgerald from DC Water.
I know Tim was dealing with some fires, was definitely planning on catching up later. Tim, are you available to chat now? If not, let's segue to Jill Hamilton, and we'll catch up with Tim later in the webinar. So Jill, why don't you take it away?
Sure. Hopefully you're seeing my full screen here, but let me know if you're not, John. First of all, thank you all for being here. Thank you for the opportunity to present with you. I'm here on behalf of the National Biodiesel Foundation, and the foundation has helped to secure some of the initial grants that funded some of the first B100 projects, and we're real proud of our role in helping achieve that. And so we're here to share. I'm here to share with you some of the funding opportunities out there. And I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. The most significant thing you should take away from this presentation is that there are a lot of funding opportunities, and we're here to help you reach out to them to meet the needs of your operation. I'm going to start with the DERA Clean Diesel program because we've had the most activity in this space. So I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive here, and then talk about the other 5 presentations. But the Diesel Emission Reduction Act of 2010 authorized EPA to provide up to $100 million annually for projects that reduce emissions from diesel engines. And last year, EPA distributed $46 million nationally and $26 million for state grants. Last year, EPA announced the national solicitation on December 9th. The deadline for application was February 26th, so it gives you about 2.5 months to get that application in. We have not seen a solicitation yet for this year, FY22, and we're hearing from EPA that because of the continuing resolution that may be delayed. So, but still plan on that announcement for December. I'd start looking at your fleet vehicles and figuring out which ones might be able to be eligible for this program. Typically, the way this program works, EPA usually notifies successful applicants sometime in the summer, and then you start your contract in October. So we're talking, if you apply this year, this winter, you're looking at FY23 vehicles. And it's important to know that the National Biodiesel Foundation, in partnership with Optimus REG and several fleets, including Iowa DOT, DC DPW, DC Water, have been successful in securing DERA funding for these B100 vehicles, and I've outlined a couple of them. But the grant can range from $100,000 to several $1 million, so it can be very, very widespread. How can you use the funds as it stands right now? Using DERA funding with B100 systems, you must purchase a new vehicle and add the system, similar to ordering a snowplow and paying. You might have to add the plow to that order. So the Optimus system will need to be included as part of that vehicle purchase invoice for new equipment. No retrofits of the existing equipment are eligible right now, and this may change hopefully in the near future. We're certainly speaking with EPA about that. There were some new changes in 2020 under this program. So vehicles being replaced must have at least 3 years of useful life yet. And that doesn't mean useful life to your fleet. You have to look at the overall life of that vehicle. And the vehicles, typical heavy duty vehicle might have a 28-year lifespan. The vehicles must meet the criteria of 7,000 miles of use per year for over a 2-year period of 7,000 miles. But if your vehicles don't meet that criteria, you can retire 2 vehicles at once. And the DERA program applies to a variety of vehicles. We've successfully targeted, as Colin has pointed out, class 5 through class 8 vehicles. And it can be partnered with, or in some cases, some states allow you to use the Volkswagen money as match. I threw this slide up here just to let you know that EPA does allow some flexibility in how you calculate your emissions. We used EPA's quantifier to calculate the emissions with everything except the CO2 emissions. We went to the National Biodiesel Board's biodiesel emissions calculator, and if you see down here at the bottom of the screen, the CO2 is about a 76.4% reduction. That may go up, meaning you may reduce more in the coming years. So I didn't want to spend too much time on this slide other than to say there's a lot of applications for the DERA program, but we're going to focus on the vehicle replacement programs. So if you're looking at a traditional delivery vehicle, maybe a municipal vehicle like the ones Colin mentioned, you're looking at a 25%, 25% from the grant, 75% match requirement for you. But if you're doing drayage vehicles, again, vehicle replacement, it's more of a dollar for dollar. So, and we welcome the opportunity to talk to you about that. I like this slide. I hope it's not too overwhelming to you, but I wanted to compare a B100 refuse hauler, new diesel vehicle replacement with a new all-electric refuse hauler. I used EPA's diesel emissions quantifier to calculate the emissions and the cost benefits. And I use the following assumptions: the 28-year life of the diesel refuse hauler using transportation data books estimates for scrappage. And we're retiring in this scenario a 2006 model year refuse hauler diesel truck without diesel particulate filters. Sorry, somebody's deciding to print in here. Excuse me. Anyway, so we're looking at replacing that 2006 model year diesel refuse hauler. You're looking at a 13-year life, remaining life on that vehicle, even if it's not necessarily your fleet. The new diesel refuse hauler costs about $2,000, $5,000. You add the Optimus system at about $15,000, and you're looking at, and again, these are estimates, but you're looking at about an overall cost of $220,000. Based on my research, I found EV refuse haulers between $500,000 and $600,000. So I've chosen the lower of that, $500,000. Now, if you look at the comparison of these two lines, the B100 to the electric vehicle, you'll notice looking at the total cost effectiveness, this is over the life of the vehicle. With the exception of CO2 and NOx, all of the B100 emissions costs over the life of the vehicle are half those of an electric vehicle. And even NOx and CO are lower than the electric vehicle. And I think that's important to note. I should add that the CO2 emissions are based on the full life cycle for the B100 vehicle, the full life cycle emissions, but the comparison of the EV is not. It's just based on the electric vehicle alone. The PM 2.5, which is causing, known to be causing lung-related issues, is particularly of interest to the environmental justice communities and is gaining attention these days. If you look at the comparison here, the B100 vehicle is 1.26 times lower in cost for PM 2.5 than the B100 vehicle, or excuse me, than the electric vehicle. This slide highlights the USDA's Higher Blend Infrastructure Incentive Program, or HBIP. Although this is no longer open, there's no longer funding at the moment, I want to bring your attention to the fact that there's been proposed $1 billion in funding for this program through the House Ag Appropriations, and the Senate has indicated a willingness to agree to that $1 billion in funding over 8 years in the reconciliation. So we are hopeful and expecting that this program will receive funding in the next few years. And so I wanted to bring it to your attention. Based on the recent program, awards will cost share grants up to 50% of the eligible project costs, not to exceed about $5 million, whichever is less. So this can go towards paying anything from fleet refueling infrastructure to retail stations to fuel distribution centers. So it's quite wide ranging, but it's nice to see some infrastructure funding out there. The FTA transit program, the FTA has billions of dollars on infrastructure development and for vehicles, such as transit vehicles. There are several dozen opportunities out there, such as the Capital and Investment Grant, and there are several that include refueling infrastructure as well. The Ames, or the Accelerating Innovative Mobility. All of these can include the OPTIMUS vector system. Although I'm not aware of a B100 FTA award, I know several transit fleets have successfully used this fund to fund similar programs that may be of interest to you. Would be happy to talk to you about how these programs can work for you and your application. I do want to point out that it can't be used for operations, but it can be used to add the B100 system to diesel vehicles as well as refueling infrastructure. And it covers, it closes November 9th, so there's still time, and it covers about 80 to 90% of your costs. And I've noted here that about 61% of the applicants are awarded, so it is very competitive. But like I said, there are many more opportunities out there. The DOT RISE program. This particular one, I'm noting the port funding. There are, again, a dozen or more port funding opportunities out there. RISE is one of them. It targets ports as well as freight, transport, goods movement, and infrastructure. For fleets that deal with ports and freight, this is a perfect opportunity for you to look at this in your region. Although this grant closed in July, it is typically funded annually, and it's a perfect time right now to begin those discussions with the appropriate parties to design your program. Again, environmental justice is now a criteria for most of these federal transportation programs. Taking into consideration environmental justice, and promoting B100's ability to cost effectively address air quality emissions, I think you'll find that B100 competes nicely in environmental justice applications. And projects that do incorporate environmental justice under the RISE program can get 100% of their project costs covered, no match. So, and if you don't incorporate that, it's a 20% match, still a very nice program. So, I wanted to point out that the DOT splits funding 50-50 between urban and rural. And rural is not defined the same way as USDA. So under this program, rural is defined as anything less than 200,000 people based on the 2010 census. So it's much bigger than the USDA definition of rural. John Sherrington, Colin Heiler, and I believe Tom Berry met with the DOT ferry folks, and they're eager to see us put together an application under this program. This program can pay for refueling infrastructure as well as, particularly where other grants don't. We're told by DOT that the B100 project is considered innovative, which gives you additional points under this program. And although this just recently closed, again, it's an annual program and each year it increases in funding. So please talk to us again about putting together a competitive application if this might be an area of interest to you. Several Clean Cities coordinators have successfully accessed the Congestion Mitigation Air Quality Program for funding diesel replacements. My good friend Alan Harted is one of them. And we've been in discussions using this program to improve state implementation plans or transportation plans using B100 technology. Especially if the DERA program doesn't apply to your fleet, this program might be a good solution. It can include retrofits too for anyone dealing with newer vehicles, as well as infrastructure. But it does require coordinating with transportation planners. Again, ports are another good example of where you can use congestion mitigation air quality money, especially projects that are looking to reduce PM 2.5. Again, CMAQ projects take a lot of time to coordinate, so begin your process now and work through your state. And this is just an example of how a lot of these federal grant programs work. They run through the state, both if you don't compete with the national DERA program, there is state funding. Same thing with the CMAQ program is allocated at the state level. As you all probably know, the Volkswagen money as well, and DOT. So these are just some examples of how the states have utilized them. So again, please make sure you're reaching out to the states. I'm here to put my contact information up. We're happy to answer some questions about these programs and how you might integrate your project. I'm throwing up some resource slides here at the end, just so you know that these links are available. When we send out the presentation, you can go ahead and link on them if you're interested. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for your attention and look forward to working with you.
So Jill, that's great. Let's segue to Rich Iverson with City of Ames while he's pulling those slides up. So I personally find the grant funding world a bit overwhelming. Jill does not, which means a fantastic resource. And the luck we've had with the B100 projects, it meets many of the criteria that she talked about. We've had a very, very high success rate getting funding of B100 projects. So hats off to Jill, and that's just my key message to folks. This money is readily available, and they want to hand it out. So Rich, I'll be quiet and let you take over.
All right, thank you. I'd like to thank all the people attending today for this important webinar, and we'll get started here. All right, so I'm Rich Iverson, Fleet Support Manager with the City of Ames, Iowa, and we've entered into this with, I guess, a lot of enthusiasm, and we're really excited about what we've been able to do. Part of this is due to the fact that we have a lot of support from our City Council and City staff. One of the things that is our council is currently working on some council or climate action plans that include the entire community, and they've made some assumptions. The first assumption is that climate change is real and primarily driven by human activity. Second, the City of Ames is committed to creating a climate-friendly future by partnering with the community. And third, the City of Ames is prepared to pursue policy changes that encourage and require carbon reduction behaviors. So they've made a key statement, which basically says that we're willing to go forward and do what we need to do to work with the community, to build a better community, a healthy community, one that's going to be good for ourselves and our descendants. You can see a lot of this. I encourage you to visit the website, the City of Ames, and look at our sustainability projects. We've got several. We have a solar farm. We've purchased a lot of wind energy, and we have watershed programs, and there's just a lot going on. We're a college community, and we're actively looking to be more sustainable. Just a quick overview of our fleet. The City of Ames has basically 21 autos, 59 pickups, 57 vans and SUVs, and then we have 44 diesel trucks, and then we have also large trucks that are emergency vehicles in our fire department. There's 7 of those, 11 light duty gas trucks, and then about 50% of our complete fleet is on some sort of alternative energy. So we're going to focus on the green. This is the 12 B100 trucks. So our biggest burn of diesel fuel was in our heavy trucks. And what we weren't able to do with that is we weren't able to run biodiesel in the winter because we didn't have the technology we now have from Optimus. So if you look at the green line on the left of your screen, above that, we could run higher blends above 50 degrees comfortably in our climate. That's only about maybe 6 or 50% of our year. So in the winter months, we could run B5, and as you can see, we have some cold temperatures in Iowa, and we're up against it. So we've run into some, a couple of years ago, it was 38 below zero actual temperature. So we have to be able to go out and deliver to our public. We have to clear the snow so they can get to work, and we need to be able to do that and have a dependable way to do that. Before our pilot project, we had 20% biodiesel was run from April through September in all of our diesel equipment and trucks. During the winter, October through March, we'd run 5%. So on average, over the year, with a 20% or with a B20 program, we were really only running about 8% bio over the course of the year in those 5 trucks that we're going to take a look at here. So in October of 2019, we entered into this unique partnership with Optimus and REG. We were approached by REG, and they said, hey, we've got something we'd like you to take a look at. It's a technology that will allow you to run 100% biodiesel through the coldest months of the winter. And so we spent some time researching and checking it out. Very comfortable with the information that we got from Optimus Technologies and REG, that this was going to be something that we needed to try. So we took it to the city council. They approved it, and what they came up with was full support for this program for a 3-year biodiesel B100 pilot project. We started with 5 trucks. We now have 12. But to get going, we needed a supply. We worked with REG. They are our supplier of fuel. We have a 12,000 gallon on-site tank with 100% biodiesel. Our trucks can go and fill up there at any time they need it, night or day. The service is great, and we get a lot of great technology or a great data return from the Optimus system and the REG system. So this has been a really good source of fuel for us and a start to a new program. So in January, we had the tank installed. We had our fuel source, and we got our 5 pilot trucks, and technology, the Optimus Vector system, was installed on 5 trucks. And lo and behold, as soon as we got that, like the very first week, going into the weekend, we had a major blizzard in Iowa. Temperatures fell down to below -10 degrees Fahrenheit. And the trucks, the 5 trucks rolled out the door to plow snow for the weekend, and they did unbelievably well. The operators were extremely impressed. They had no difficulties with the system. They didn't have any challenges using the system. It's very simple. And so we were very, very pleased and off to a good start. In fact, during that first period of time, you can see here, the blue is where we were using 100% biodiesel, and the red is where we were using the diesel to start and warm up the vehicles and then run through the shutdown program. So our trucks are used year round. We have several Class 8 heavy duty tandem trucks, and we have 5 medium-sized, medium-duty trucks that are all equipped, so 12 total are equipped with the Optimus vector system, working year-round. What do I need to begin using it? Well, that's the first question that I asked, and so we need our fuel source, which was satisfied by REG, and the technology that was satisfied by the Optimus system. So the Optimus system is incredibly easy to get installed. In fact, it's not a conversion of the truck. It's rather it's equipping the truck with a system that'll manage the fuel so that it can burn the 100% biodiesel. So we have a split tank here that you can see in this slide on that truck that's been installed. The old tank is on the ground. I know Colin covered how the system works. I'll just kind of touch on it, but it basically made it really easy for us. We have a truck before, truck after, and in January with the new split tanks being installed and the Optimus system, we were off and running. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of our what we've experienced over the past 18 months. Basically, our B100 pricing has been very competitive with all of the fuel that we would buy for number 2 diesel fuel, as you can see here. And then, we're halfway through our project, our 3-year project, and we ran the numbers and got the midway point. So we have gone from virtually running 8% biodiesel to running 84% biodiesel in our diesel trucks that are in this program. The fuel economy is slightly lower, which we expected, but the pricing has helped us out there. We've had 0 performance issues over the course of 18 months. Fuel heating costs. So we have an above ground tank. In the winter, it's pretty cold and it needs to be heated. So that added some price to the gallon. But in terms of our carbon offset, it's been remarkable. After the cost of electric to heat the tank, we have 156 metric tons of CO2 offset at the halfway point, which is really, really good for us. We've made a huge advancement there. So we're very grateful to the opportunity to share. I can tell you that the system is, the beauty of it's simple. It works great, and we have had 0 problems with it. And I can tell you that it's been a huge jump for us moving in the right directions to make our communities sustainable. So I thank you for that, and I'll turn it over to John.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. So we'll open it up for Q&A for Rich here in a few moments. He's got tremendous subject matter expertise on the operational practicalities actually implementing this in your fleet. So my apologies. Tim Fitzgerald, who is the fleet manager for DC Water, has a work emergency that he is dealing with. He has been texting Jill and myself and others. He is not going to be able to join us. I do have a video of some of the work we've done with both Department of Public Works and DC Water. So I'm going to share that now. I hit the right deck. Oops, sorry. There we go.
John, we aren't seeing it.
John, while we're waiting for you, should we just entertain a couple questions and let me know when you're ready to go?
Ira, people can hear you.
Yeah, that I know. Are you ready? Are you ready to go, or would you like me to pose a few of the questions that have come in and while you're getting the video loaded?
So I just got word that nobody could see or hear that video. Courtney, can you try to run it? So Rich or Colin, could you guys see any of that?
No,
Yes or no?
no.
No,
we're
it did not. It did not show.
Courtney, can you pull it up?
They teased me. Everybody thought it was just like the worst job in the world. And then when I would be on the truck, everybody would stop and, you know, wave and fuss at the men. Why y'all got her doing that? It was just funny. It was every time they would see me, they was like, why you got her doing this? What's wrong with y'all? And they, you know, I had to get a job that will help me take care of my family. I know this. But now everybody want the job, men and women.
DPW touches every district resident and visitor every day by collecting trash and recyclables, cleaning streets, enforcing parking regulations, towing abandoned and junk vehicles. We also provide fleet services to all district government agencies. So we touch everyone every day. They take great pride in delivering their services every day and helping the environment at the same time, creating fewer emissions and also creating cleaner air. It's a part of the mayor's climate action plan where we are charged with reducing emissions. So the use of the biodiesel, which is a cleaner burning alternative fuel, helps us reduce emissions while we continue to deliver the services we need to do throughout the district. So we're helping reach our goals by using biodiesel fuel. We're proud that we are helping the farmers, that we are using biodiesel to deliver our services, and we're also at the same time helping clean the environment.
80s, man, everybody thought it was just like the worst job in the world.
The phrase better, cleaner now means that DC is making a difference through our green initiatives. The climate action plan is a big deal in the district, and we want to do our part at DC and at fleet management to make the district a cleaner place and healthier place. The District of Columbia has been using biodiesel for the past 10 to 12 years very successfully. All of the district fleet runs on biodiesel in some form, and it's usually a blend of 20% biodiesel and 80% petroleum diesel. We also have a number of new vehicles that run on 100% biodiesel that we've had really good success with. This vehicle behind me runs on 100% biodiesel, so it reduces emissions from its petroleum counterparts by about 75%. We started this program 3 years ago with a pilot of 6 vehicles. It was greatly successful, and we're moving forward with purchasing a lot more of these vehicles in the future. In terms of performance, we haven't noticed any issues or any negative impacts from the B100. We were using diesel and biodiesel blends before the B100. No issues, no impacts. Power is the same.
DC Water is the largest wastewater treatment facility in the world, and we're the most advanced. My role here at DC Water as the fleet director is to provide the most efficient and effective type of vehicles, environmentally friendly. We've gone up to B100 now, and we've partnered with REG and some of the other companies to do so. We saw where they best fit in terms of our understanding of where we could go without any degradation to our fleet, to our operators, and we wanted to make sure that our operators returned home safer. So we went from B10 to B20, now we're at B100, and we're liking what we're doing, and everybody's in on the party now. So it's a cleaner burning fuel. There's no degradation in terms of usage. It's cleaner. They are going home a little safer. If you're gonna manage something, you have to be able to measure it. There's been no drop off, there's been no cost overruns, and where we can use biodiesel and where it's smart to do so, we're going to use it. We're going to use it because it helps us. We want to make sure that we're reaching the masses in terms of it all so that we can be in a position to ensure the well-being of the citizens and the people we work with. It makes a difference. A happy person doing their job is a better person doing their job.
So first of all, Courtney, thank you for saving me. I thought everybody was watching that video and I was the only one enjoying it on my computer. So apologies for that. So once again, Tim Fitzgerald does extend his apologies. Obviously, that was him on the last minute or two of the second video. Both DPW and DC Water in DC have been huge supporters and developmental partners with B100. I think I will turn the platform back to you if the panelists could come back on screen. We've got a bit of extra time for Q&A at the end since Tim was not able to join us. We've been trying to answer a number of the questions on the Q&A during the course of the last hour or so, but Ira, at this point, let's open up for questions from the field here.
Okay, and even if you've done that, John, there's some that I wrote down that you could, I will repeat for the rest of the participants to hear your responses. There were questions, for example, for Rich. I know Rich touched on it a bit about heating your bulk tank. Rich, could you just talk about that just a little, about your how that's done and the overall cost?
Yeah, for our 12,000 gallon fuel tank, it's heated with electricity. It has a designated circuit so that we can track that cost. It does reflect some other charges in there. There's a water sewer charge on top of that, but that service is provided through the City of Ames. We do generate part of our own electricity. And at first I was concerned about the amount of carbon that we might be using just in electricity. However, the City of Ames has recently been investing into a solar farm, and they've purchased a lot of wind generated electricity, which has offset that amount. So we're down below about a family's household, annual household use of carbon to heat that fuel. But we've by far exceeded that in carbon offset with our trucks. So it's figured into the mix. I mean, we're trying to include everything possible in there to make a very accurate and honest statement about how successful this program has actually been for us. And I would also say that we've just those 5 trucks use about 10% of our annual diesel burn. So that's a big impact on it. And we're just getting started. I mean, this is just the beginning. We have 12 trucks now. We plan to add more. So this is exciting for us. And the other thing is the cost. We don't have to go out and buy new vehicles. We can just start with what we've got and go from there. So I'll stop there.
Okay.
Just one other point. So many fleets, if they're going to start with, 10, 20, 30 vehicles, they need their existing bulk fuel infrastructure for diesel fuel to fuel the rest of their fleet. So we worked with the City of Ames. We put in that above ground tank. We got 4,000, 8,000, 12,000 and larger tanks available. We will work with our fleet partners to make sure that you can get going before you commit to your whole fleet.
John, another question for you that came in about that the current demand for biodiesel may outstrip capacity. What is the overall picture for availability of the fuel?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So we're seeing tremendous demand for low carbon fuels, both biodiesel and renewable diesel, and RHE actually makes both products. A lot of the growth we're seeing here in the next 3 to 4 years is actually renewable diesel production capacity. So I think the question really is, where are all the feedstocks going to come from globally to continue to fuel this increasing demand for these low carbon fuels? So people have been asking me and the industry that question when we were a 500 million gallon a year industry, when we were $1 billion, $2 billion, we're now $3.5 billion. We're going to grow to 5 billion plus here very quickly. What we're seeing is that fleets are willing to pay for these low carbon fuels. We and others are making investments in new crops and new technology to continue to expand feedstocks. We are still very, very early in our penetration of the 70 billion gallon a year diesel fuel market. So we're very confident there's going to continue to be feedstocks to allow ourselves and others to grow in this space.
Okay, thank you. A couple questions for Colin involving the cost of your systems, particularly on a Class 8 truck. Could you share just generally, Colin, what that cost is? And there was one other question on performance, but why don't you answer that one first?
Yeah, so from a cost standpoint, the systems are engineered on an application specific basis. So there's generally a range somewhere between 14 and 17,000 installed for the technology. And there's a wide variety of different configurations. The most flexibility is actually probably on the fuel tank. So Rich showed a couple of his trucks that had dual chambered tanks in traditional Class 8 over the road style trucks where there's a saddle tank. Those have different fuel tank configurations, but on average, the pricing is about 14 to 17,000 installed. And it allows you to leverage, again, existing vehicles within the fleet. And then that price is also pretty comparable when you're looking at purchasing a new vehicle. The installation time ends up being a little bit less when you're installing on just a cab and chassis versus a fully equipped vehicle.
Okay. And Jill, you may jump in here and talk about from the funding that you've been successful with, what percentage of that cost has been covered by grants?
So as far as the cost of the Optimus system, 100% on the grants we did, and some of the vehicle costs. So it's actually a really nice win-win for the fleets. Under DERA, as I mentioned, it pays for 25% of the overall project cost, including your management costs if you want. And that will more than cover the Optimus system. It'll help you retire those vehicles early.
Okay. Colin, another one for you. We heard Ryan Frazier from DC Public Works talk about the fact that there wasn't any performance degradation in his fleet. There was a question earlier about whether your system affected horsepower at all. What has been your experience overall?
Yeah, so we had actually, Rich touched on it a little bit in his discussion as well. The first week of their project launch, they got hit with a pretty significant storm. They had those first 5 vehicles out. I think they were operating 24 hours a day for 2 or 3 days straight. No reports from drivers or operators on lack of power performance. Anecdotal there. We've got overweight permitted vehicles that are operating our technology that weigh 105.5. So, roughly 25,000 pounds over a traditional Class 8 tractor trailer that are hauling in mountain passes with no degradation in power and performance. And then very specifically, we just wrapped up some dyno testing, heavy duty dyno testing for a customer where we did power and torque curve and power pole analysis on both biodiesel and traditional diesel. And the variation between those was within the limits of variation on the measurement equipment for the dynamometer. So effectively no change in power or performance across the applications we've tested.
Okay. Question just came in about utilization of B100 in school bus applications. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we do have a project that we launched recently that's a school bus application. School buses are a really interesting and a really good application for the technology. Comparatively, there's a smaller volume of fuel utilized just based on the nature of how those systems operate. But one of the things Jill had done a good job at pointing out here, and I'll share my screen with a couple slides as well. We did an analysis for a customer comparing electrification to 100% biodiesel. And when you look at the CapEx that's required, both on a vehicle basis, either retrofitting existing buses or repowering, in the case of an EV, or purchasing new, and you look ultimately with the measurable objective being, how cost effective is it to reduce a ton of carbon? What we found, you've got the diesel baseline, so your baseline current operating. You've got your biodiesel, and then you've got the comparison on an EV. And the summary of this ultimately is, you've got about a 25 times lower cost mechanism to reduce carbon by deploying 100% biodiesel in school buses versus electric buses. So it's about $86 per ton of carbon reduced when you're looking at a school bus application. This is assuming a 30 bus fleet over a roughly 7-year time frame. And you compare that to the same amount of carbon reduced in an EV, it's well over $2,000 per ton. So, when you're looking at a financial analysis for carbon reduction, B100 is a phenomenal application for school buses, even though they are kind of on the lighter side of utilization, just because they run, a few hours in the morning and a few hours at night.
Okay, thank you. Courtney, will be the availability of the video from the Zoom meeting and the slide presentations?
Yeah, the decks and the decks will be made available to the participants, and there is a video recording available. Ira, so we're in good shape on both those.
Are we just going to email them to the registration list or a link, or how are we going to do that?
Let me follow up with Courtney on that, but if folks want them, let us know, we can get them to them. We'll definitely email the presentations in a PDF.
Okay. Something else just came in. Did the fuel lines have to be flushed or replaced due to the cleaning properties of the B100 for the install on a used truck?
Yeah, so the fuel system upgrade does include the hoses and fittings, everything that's required to upgrade the vehicle. So on an older piece of equipment, you can run into compatibility issues, but that's part of the system. So what we provide is a fully engineered product. If there are seals or hoses or anything like that that need to be upgraded, those are included in the kit. Generally speaking, when you're looking at when you're looking at upgrading an existing vehicle, you are able to bypass some of the cleaning effects and properties of biodiesel because we're utilizing a new fuel tank. So you don't have years of sludge and years of diesel accumulation in that fuel tank that you typically get because of the solvent properties of biodiesel. People think about, that filter plugging challenge. So typically that's eliminated because we're upgrading with new components. We do include the fuel lines, the fittings, anything that's necessary. And then the other thing that I'll touch on because it ties into this a little bit, but I don't think was specifically mentioned earlier. A lot of people have a perception or experience with biodiesel from 10, 20 years ago. Not only has the technology advanced significantly, the fuel is advanced to a degree that it's often, cleaner than the diesel fuel that you're utilizing. The ISO specifications and quality control specifications on biodiesel is significantly tighter than generally what you see on diesel fuel. But the final point I'll make there is that the biodiesel system and the diesel system utilize separate fuel filters. So the biodiesel fuel filter embedded within our system is isolated. The diesel fuel filter on the vehicle is isolated. So you're not sharing that filter between the two systems. And so if at any point the biodiesel filter needs to be replaced, our software is monitoring the health of that. It'll just automatically kick the vehicle over to traditional diesel. So you don't lose any power performance from hesitation from a clogged fuel filter or anything like that. But generally speaking, clogged fuel filters aren't even a thing in common deployments or in modern deployments.
A question for Colin or for John. In terms, Colin, your competition, what other EPA verified technologies are out there?
Yeah, so I think that's a pretty high level question. There's a wide variety of different technologies. When you're looking at diesel heavy duty vehicles, you get a little bit more restricted. But we generally are among a portfolio of solutions that include natural gas, electrification, hydrogen fuel cell. There's additive technologies. There's a wide range of things that fleets can evaluate to look at reducing their emissions. The ultimate, matrix ends up in the fleet user. What are you looking to accomplish? What's your budget? If you've got an unlimited budget and happy to deploy, technology that needs to be custom built on a per application basis, I'm sure you could get a hydrogen snowplow today. Maybe not today, maybe in a couple of years as it develops, but you're paying $15-16 a gallon equivalent for something like that. So wide variety of different solutions. It's just a matter of what are the decision-making criteria that you're looking for, and we see biodiesel as the easiest, lowest cost to integrate.
Okay.
I just wanted to chime in on this one, is that I don't know where this question is really coming from. They might be asking, is this a verified technology? And it's eligible as a new vehicle purchase. And so it is something that the team here is looking at adding it as a verified technology so you could do it in and of itself, but that's not available today. Right now, today, you can purchase it under the DERA program specifically as a part of a new vehicle package. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. I'm not sure where the question, where the direction of that question was quite going, but I wanted to just throw that out.
Okay. John, are there any algae growth issues?
Yeah, this is a bit of a misperception that's been out there for years that biodiesel and algae go hand in hand. Algae, what it really likes is water. I mean, we're introducing pure B100 in a a tank and a new fueling infrastructure, we haven't had any issues whatsoever with algae.
Yeah, and I'll just make a comment here because we see this a lot when we're talking with fleets. You know, regardless of what fuel it is, whether it's diesel, biodiesel, gasoline, ethanol, you know, the best way to combat any challenges associated with you know, fuel quality is proper tank care, handling, and maintenance. And so if you you know, if you don't have a tank cleaning regimen and procedure today, it's certainly a worthwhile activity to invest in one. You know, tank cleaning once a year, once every other year. You know, polishing fuel in the tank. Again, regardless of the type of fuel, that has far and away outsized benefits than you know, any other specific action.
Great. Well, we seem to have exhausted the questions that have come in, so I'd ask the panelists if they have any other closing thoughts. We're right on schedule, so we're about ready to sign off. But if John, Jill, Colin, or Rich have any final thoughts, now would be the time to provide.
Yeah, thanks, Ira. Thanks to the Greater Washington Clean Cities, all of our sponsors, the panelists, and the participants. So I will tell you that REG and Optimus are continuing to work with fleets to identify fleets in both the public and the private sector to adopt and begin commercializing this technology. We can work with Jill and the grant writers to help subsidize some of the initial upfront costs, as well as the ongoing investments in vehicles. And we're continuing to look for partners across the country. So I'll close with that.
And I will just add that thank you all for the participation and the team that put this together. I think the foundation will likely be putting this up on its website when we have the viewing the data available to put up. But I just wanted to throw that out, that if you're looking to view this again, we'll put it on the foundation website.
I'll have to say that with our program, we would not be able to do what we're doing without REG or Optimus helping us with the technology and the fuel. There isn't a product out there for that we could accomplish the same thing that isn't going to wind up using and generating more carbon than what we're doing. We're making a great headway here, and we're doing it early on for a very low investment by comparison. I can't tell you, if anybody has any questions, just call me. I can verify all of our data. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. I think this was a really great and informative session. As John and Jill have said, we'll provide you with notification on how you can get a copy of the presentation. And for now, thanks everyone for participating, and have a great afternoon.
Thanks all.